Germany is breaking its golden rule. For decades, the country has been the world's poster child for fiscal responsibility, a nation so allergic to debt that it wrote a balanced budget law, the debt brake, directly into its constitution. Now, in a move that is sending shockwaves through Europe and beyond, Germany is preparing to shatter its own traditions and embark on one of the largest debt-fueled spending sprees in its post-war history. We're talking about a plan that will easily surpass 1 trillion euros, fundamentally reshaping the German state and its role in the world. Get ready, because we're about to break down exactly why the famously frugal Germans are about to borrow and spend on an unprecedented scale. Let's get straight to the point. This isn't a minor policy tweak, it's a complete reversal. The new coalition government, which took power in early 2025 under the guidance of Finance Minister Lars Klingbeil, has decided that the cost of not-cash spending is now far greater than the risk of borrowing. They are staring down a perfect storm of crises, crumbling domestic infrastructure, a military that has been neglected for decades, and an urgent need to transition to a green economy, all set against a backdrop of intense geopolitical danger. The plan is to confront all of this head-on, and the price tag is staggering. Over the next 5 years, from 2025 to 2029, Germany is planning to take on nearly 850 billion euros in new debt. This will push the country's total public debt to GDP ratio from a relatively stable 62.5% in 2024 to an estimated 71% by 2030. To put it simply, Germany is turning on the spending taps, and it's doing so with borrowed money. So where is all this money going? The first major target is something every German sees, feels, and complains about every single day: infrastructure. For years, Germany's obsession with avoiding debt has come at a hidden cost. That cost is visible in the nation's dilapidated roads, its crumbling school buildings, and its thousands of bridges that are in desperate need of repair. Reporting from media outlet DW has highlighted a huge investment backlog that has been allowed to fester for years, directly hurting the country's economic potential and the quality of daily life. Think of it as a house with a perfect credit score, but a leaky roof and cracked foundations. The government has decided it's finally time to call the contractors. For the year 2025 alone, the draft budget has earmarked approximately 115 billion euros, or about 135 billion US dollars, for infrastructure investment. This isn't just about patching up potholes, it's a massive undertaking to modernize the physical backbone of Europe's largest economy, including a huge push to expand digital infrastructure like nationwide fiber optic internet, an area where Germany has embarrassingly lagged behind many of its neighbors. But fixing bridges and schools is only one part of this colossal plan. The second, and arguably more urgent, driver of this spending is a profound shift in Germany's security posture. For this, we have to look east, to the ongoing war in Ukraine. That conflict shattered Germany's long-held belief that economic interdependence could guarantee peace in Europe. The wake-up call was brutal. In 2022, the government announced a special fund of 100 billion euros to begin modernizing its neglected military, the Bundeswehr. But now, it's clear that was just a down payment. According to the government's new plans, that entire fund will be used up by 2027. What comes after is even more dramatic. Germany is now committed to not just meeting, but significantly exceeding NATO's defense spending targets. The goal is to more than double defense spending by the year 2029, reaching an annual figure of around 152.8 billion euros. This would take Germany's defense budget to a massive 3.5% of its gross domestic product. You might be wondering, why 3.5%? The official NATO target is 2%. The answer lies not just in Moscow, but also in Washington. There are profound and growing doubts within Berlin about the long-term reliability of the transatlantic alliance. With political volatility in the United States and the possibility of a future administration less committed to European security, German leaders have concluded that they can no longer afford to outsource their defense. As NPR has reported, there is a growing consensus that Europe, with Germany at its core, must be able to defend itself. This massive military investment is Germany's attempt to build that capability, and to do it quickly. It's a recognition that peace and security have a price, and Germany is finally willing to pay it. This brings us to the biggest question of all: how is any of this legally possible? For years, Germany's constitutional debt brake, or Schuldenbremse as it's known, has been the ultimate obstacle to this kind of spending. This rule, enshrined in the Constitution, strictly limited new federal borrowing to a tiny 0.35% of GDP, except in major emergencies like a pandemic or a natural disaster. To fund a trillion-euro vision, this legislative wall had to come down, and that's exactly what the new coalition government did. In a historic vote, the Bundestag approved a fundamental reform of the debt brake rules. They didn't abolish it entirely, but they created a massive exception. The solution is a new 500 billion euro special fund, a legally separate pot of money financed entirely by borrowing over the next 12 years. This fund is specifically designed to bypass the normal budget rules and channel money directly into the two top priorities: infrastructure and defense. It is, in essence, a giant officially sanctioned off-the-books credit card. This package also reflects the government's environmental priorities, with a significant 100 billion euros of that fund dedicated to climate-related investments, such as promoting green energy and sustainable industry. This move is a political masterstroke, allowing the government to address the climate crisis while simultaneously funding its other urgent needs. It signals that Germany's transformation isn't just about concrete and cannons, it's also about building a sustainable future. Let's look at the sheer scale of the budget to understand the magnitude of this shift. The total federal budget planned for 2025 is set at 503 billion euros. Of that amount, a jaw-dropping 143 billion euros will be financed through new debt. This isn't a one-off event. It's the new normal for the foreseeable future. The government is betting that this massive injection of public funds will act as a powerful stimulant for the German economy, which has been struggling with stagnation. The logic, as detailed in analysis from institutions like BNP Paribas, is that this targeted public spending will crowd in private investment. When the government builds a new highway or lays down high-speed internet cables, it makes it easier and more profitable for private companies to build factories, open offices, and hire workers. The hope is that this spending will kickstart a cycle of growth, raising Germany's economic potential and, in the long run, making the debt more manageable. It's a high-stakes gamble, an attempt to spend their way back to prosperity and security. Of course, a decision this monumental is not without its critics. The plan has faced significant political opposition from those who argue the government's priorities are skewed. While the coalition has focused on military hardware and infrastructure projects, critics contend that the funds are desperately needed elsewhere. They point to underfunded social services, a shortage of daycare facilities, and a public transport system in need of its own massive investment. This has sparked a fierce guns versus butter debate within German politics. Opponents of the plan argue that while a strong military is important, the foundation of national security is a society that works for everyone. They ask, what is the point of having advanced fighter jets if families cannot find childcare and commuters are stuck on failing train lines? Despite these powerful arguments, the coalition government successfully marshaled the political will to push through both the spending plans and, crucially, the constitutional reforms to the debt brake. They have made their choice, and it is a decisive pivot towards hard power and physical modernization. There is also the unavoidable and rapidly growing cost of the debt itself. Borrowing hundreds of billions of euros is not free. As Germany's debt pile grows, so will its interest payments. Projections show that by 2029, the annual interest costs on this new debt could reach 62 billion euros. That is an enormous sum of money that will be unavailable for anything else. It will consume roughly 10% of the entire federal budget, a slice of the pie that will be permanently reserved for servicing past borrowing. This is the long-term trade-off. The investments of today are being paid for by constraining the spending choices of tomorrow. The government argues this is a price worth paying to secure Germany's future economic viability and its place in a more dangerous world. They see it as an investment that will pay dividends in growth and security for decades to come. So, to summarize this seismic shift, Germany wants to massively increase its debt for a clear and urgent set of reasons. First, to overhaul its aging and neglected infrastructure, the very foundation of its economy. Second, to fundamentally rebuild its military and meet its security obligations in a world where it can no longer take American protection for granted. And third, to invest in the green and digital transitions necessary to remain competitive in the 21st century. This 1 trillion plus euro plan, fueled by nearly 850 billion euros in new debt over just 5 years, represents the end of an era of fiscal austerity. It is enabled by a historic reform of the country's constitutional debt limits, a move that would have been politically unthinkable just a few years ago. This is Germany's response to a confluence of crises that have laid bare the country's vulnerabilities. The government is placing a massive bet that by borrowing and investing heavily now, it can fix the problems that have been left to fester for too long, securing the nation's prosperity and its ability to defend itself for a new and uncertain era. It is a bold, risky, and controversial strategy, one that breaks with decades of tradition. The success or failure of this great German gamble will not only determine the future of Europe's largest economy, but will also send a powerful message about how Western democracies intend to navigate the turbulent decades ahead. The era of the frugal German is over, the age of the big spending German has just begun.